Welcome to Them Bahamians. Them Bahamians is a media initiative of the Bahamian American Cultural Society. The mission of the society is to expose the culture of the Bahamas, but not only the culture of the Bahamas, but the accomplishments and the of other people here in the New York City area, as well as the tri-state area and the world. Our mission is about peace in the world today. But if you watched the news over the weekend, it was not about peace, it was about war. But today we're going to be talking with Chapman Roberts, and he's going to give us give us information on an event that's happening June 23rd at Carnegie Hall. Welcome, Mr. Roberts.
Very good to be here.
It's a pleasure having you with me today.
Great, thank you.
Before we talk about this fabulous event that's happening at Carnegie Hall on June 23rd at 8 o'clock, I want you to tell me something about your accomplishment and how you got started into the entertainment field.
I know that you asked me a question earlier about when did I want to become an entertainer. Actually, I was trained as a singer as a child.
Okay.
And I sang with the Cleveland Symphony Orchestra when I was a child. And we had a marvelous training program in the public schools in Cleveland, Ohio. This was in the 40s, during the Second World War. And they had groups of children that they put in things they called enrichment classes.
Right.
And they call them acceleration classes now, I guess. And so we studied languages. We sang in languages. All the programs were accelerated. And at that time, they were experimenting on doing programs where 4th, 5th, and 6th graders were in the same room so that you heard what was coming the year before you saw it.
Okay.
So we were absorbing information constantly.
Right. So that's like a one-room school, one classroom?
One classroom with 3 different tables, a different grade at each table.
Okay.
So you were always ahead of yourself. And of course, my father was a bishop in the Church of God in Christ. He was a bishop for the state of Ohio. So his church was the largest Church of God in Christ in the state of Ohio. So it was a mecca for all the other churches. And on any given Sunday morning, you would have a 100-voice choir singing, and they sang everything. My school teachers sang with the Cleveland Orchestra. There were soloists with the Cleveland Orchestra. In the chorus, the Cleveland Orchestra, and Robert Shaw was the chorus master. So I was surrounded by music most of the time.
Right. So you were really in an enriched program.
Yes.
That's unusual for the United States.
Well, I've often said to people, I think it's unfortunate that a young black child in America during the Second World War can get a better education than a young white child can, even in a private school today. Because even in the private schools, the music, the art, and the sports have been removed. We had access to all of it.
That's great. That's beautiful. So you started out as a music, you were tenor, or which was
Actually,
your?
I was a soprano as a boy.
Soprano.
A soprano, and they tried to give me piano lessons, and it drove my piano teacher to a distraction, so they gave up on that. But I knew I was able to sing, and I enjoyed it.
Okay.
And then when the voice started to change, when you're 14, 15, 16 years old, the voice is constantly changing. For instance, each of us don't sound the way we sounded the day we were born.
Right.
So the voice continues to change. But when it started to change from childhood into manhood, you can run into problems if the voice is not treated properly. So I didn't sing for a while. Then when I got to be about 16, I started to sing again.
Okay.
And then I was a tenor.
And then you were tenor. Okay, great.
And then as I got older, into my 30s and 40s and 50s, I was a baritone. And now I'm in my 60s, I became a bass, and now that I'm in my 70s, it's basso profundo.
It keeps changing.
One goes up, the other goes down.
Beautiful. You have a really nice voice. Beautiful voice. I mean, it's
Very
really crisp and right sharp. Because I've heard you in The People Can Fly.
Yes.
You narrated that?
Yes.
And that was absolutely beautiful. I mean, you had the audience moving along with you, going, trucking along.
Well, it's a wonderful
Even
story.
when you move off the stage, you were still trucking along with you. It was
a wonderful story.
It was really absolutely wonderful story.
And it's a story of hope and aspiration. at the same time.
Yeah.
It's a story of redemption, and it's a story of how these groups of people conquered the greatest country in the world
Exactly.
without army, bombs,
Right,
tanks,
right.
or a single firearm.
Exactly. Yeah, it's quite a difference today. You know, it's quite. You know, can't imagine that happening today.
Indeed.
Yeah, yeah.
And we
yeah.
did it through song and music and art and poetry,
Right, right.
which was really the strongest weapon we still have.
Exactly. Yes. I mean, entertaining and voice and singing is really one of the strongest avenues to peace, lending peace throughout the world.
Indeed, and it's also the art of instruction. It's the art of informing. It's the art of persuasion.
Right.
It is the art of administering perspective.
True. Very true.
So that if we understand that in the old days, when the old people sang, "Wade in the water, children, wade in the water, God's gonna trouble the water." We weren't talking about going down to the beach
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
or out to Montauk or down to the Jersey Shore. We were saying that if you wanted to escape from slavery and enter into freedom, during your escape, if you walked in the creek or if you walked in the river, the bloodhounds could not track your scent, and you had a better chance of freedom. So we use those songs as codes to tell people how to travel.
Right,
Or
right.
we would say, "Follow the drinking gourd, follow the drinking gourd, 'cause the old man is a-waiting for to carry you to freedom. Follow the drinking gourd." And they were talking about the North Star.
That's just right. Uh-huh.
So that if you kept your eye on it, you were bound to get somewhere that's better than where you've been.
Right. Yes.
So
yes.
once again, we use codes, we use signs, we use the heavens, just as they say the quote, 3 wise men used the stars to discover who they call their savior.
Right.
We did the same thing.
Yes. You know, talking about the slave time, just about 3 weeks ago, Audrey Dean Wright, she's a professor at the College of Bahamas, she was here and with a group of singers that performed at Lincoln Center. And it was the Song of Jeremiah, which is another beautiful song and concert by another black conductor, I think Mr. Powell and Stephanie Powers. And that was Saturday. And Sunday, we went to the First Church in New Jersey. And that church has 2 entrances for slaves to escape. They came in one way and they went out the other way into the river to head, moving south. Now, that church has a lot of history. And I was surprised how mesmerized the students from Bahamas were to learn about Harriet Tubman and her movement, and the slave movement. And, it brings back to mind that, and also the people can fly. We're not hearing too much of that today. How do you think? Would you think so?
You see, something happened. You speak about a church with 2 entrances.
Right.
I've not been to this particular place, but I have friends who have been there.
Yeah, the Presbyterian
and the president,
church.
I'm speaking about another church.
Okay.
Yet another church. President and Mrs. Obama went to this location, and friends of mine have been there, and I hope to get there someday. Where there was a church that you were invited to attend for services, and you would go in the front door, and when the service was over with, the back door would open, and the Africans were herded onto slave ships. So some people who went to church never came back.
Never came back.
Some people who went down to the water never came back. So you hear stories about, don't go down to the water because people don't come back. Storytelling.
Right.
Old Mother Hubbard went to the cupboards to get her poor dog a bone. Well, we were all taught that story as children.
Right, yes.
Well,
even in the Bahamas, we did.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah.
Well, my family had a home in a little lake town on Lake Erie called Ashtabula, Ohio, and my brothers and their children and their grandchildren still live there.
Okay, beautiful.
And there's a house on the banks of Lake Erie called the Hubbard House. And it was a stop on the Underground Railroad.
Okay.
And in the walls, there are coffin-like shelves so that people who were escaping from the South on the Underground Railroad would be placed in these shelves and the doors closed.
Oh, okay.
And they would wait until it was safe, and they would leave under cover of darkness and be taken by boat to Canada.
Interesting. Right, right.
So that
right.
when food ran out for them, people would say, "Old Mother Hubbard went to the cupboard," and people would know that it's time to bring more food, so that the abolitionists would bring food to them. And that was another code, and we developed that into story time.
Interesting. That's a wonderful story. You know, you hear these songs, these poetry, you say them, but you never get the real story behind it. So you just did that for me. That's wonderful.
And I've never sung it, and I can make it up on the spot. Old Mother Hubbard went to the cupboard to get a poor dog a bone. Well, when she got there, the cupboard was there. The cupboard was bare, and the poor dog, he had none.
Oh, beautiful.
I just made it up. But that's what we do.
Yeah.
You see? So singing is speaking on tone.
Right, right.
So that you can say, when you walk into somebody's house, "Good morning, how are you? I'm so glad to see you."
Right, right, right.
That's all it is, speaking on tone.
Exactly, beautiful. Staying within that same area, I read where you did a gospel concert.
Yes.
In London.
Yes, it was called The Gospel According to Broadway.
The gospel according to?
Gospel According to Broadway.
To Broadway,
It's 300
okay.
years of African American sacred music.
Okay.
And we incorporated the symphonic works of William Grant Still. And we discussed the history of the operatic singer in our history. We discussed the history of the Fisk Jubilee singers who went in 1875 to sing in a command performance for Queen Victoria. We discussed the African songs. You see, I don't use the word slave. I use the word African.
Okay, right.
So when the Africans were picking the cotton, and when the Africans came here, you see, because slave is what one is forced to do, unpaid, against one's will.
Right.
African is who they were. That also connotated where they were from. So the moment they stripped them of their Africanness, they were allowed to treat them as they wanted them to be and to do, rather than treat them as people.
Right.
So if I say, for instance, when the Africans were escaping to go north, you suddenly understand that this country was built by people from another continent. And they had an identity, they had a religion, they had a vision, they had a conviction, and they were stripped of it. If we get rid of the word slave, the way we have gotten rid of other words, and replace it with Africans, the entire context of the story will change. And I would invite everybody to just try that once in a while. Don't say slave, say African and the Africans and the Africans who built this country, and see how it changes that story.
Right. Beautiful. But now let's talk about the gospel concert.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we included the work of William Grant Still, his symphonic works. We did the songs that were, the spirituals that were made famous by Roland Hayes and Marian Anderson. Of course, the Fisk Jubilee singers. And we incorporated one song in particular in the program called Amazing Grace, which a lot of people think the song was written by people of color, and in fact it was not. It was written by an English sea captain by the name of John Newton, who had an epiphany, and his epiphany is not one that we've actually shared. So when he says that "save a wretch like me," he's right about himself. I have difficulty singing the song. I don't bother with it because I don't consider myself a wretch. He called himself a wretch deservedly. And I think we should examine what that song really means. It was his epiphany, it was his redemption, but in that redemption we were rewarded with a certain kind of freedom, but we need to understand that it was not about us, it was about him.
Right. Now, you did it in London. Have you done it here in the United States?
I've not been invited, ironically enough, to do it here in the United States. In fact, the only time I've been invited to do Live the Dream, which we're doing at Carnegie Hall.
Live the Dream.
If this airs on the 23rd, we'll be doing it tonight. We will be in rehearsals right at this moment. The Apollo turned us down. And so the Queensborough Performing Arts Center in Queens invited us to come, and now we're at Carnegie Hall. But we were not welcome at the Apollo. This piece that I did called The Gospel According to Broadway, the history of African American sacred music, I've never been invited to perform it here, but I would like to do it someday.
I think that's, I mean, I think all the songs are really beautiful.
They're glorious. We
you know,
did This Little Light of Mine. We did Let Us Break Bread Together.
Yes.
We did a vocalese based on a Rachmaninoff vocalese,
Yeah.
that into which Richard Smallwood, the gospel composer, incorporated the story of Christ dying on the cross. It's absolutely beautiful. So we do it with a 65-piece concert orchestra, which is very unusual in all of African American music. One very seldom gets the chance to perform with the symphony orchestra.
Right,
So the entire piece is performed with symphony orchestra.
Okay.
We did selections from the Broadway shows, Your Arms Too Short to Box with God,
Right.
from Bubbling Brown Sugar, from Sophisticated Ladies. We did the work of Duke Ellington, as arranged by Luther Henderson.
Right.
We do Dvorak's New World Symphony, because he came to the United States from England, from Hungary via England, to study in Indiana with African American composers, and went back and wrote the New World Symphony based on what he learned about African spirituals.
Right, right. You know, that is so unusual that the Apollo turned you down. I mean, why do you think they would have done that?
Well, I think it has something to do with programming, but it also might have something to do with lack of foresight.
Lack of
Foresight.
foresight. Well, you know,
I think it's
today.
if it's good enough for Carnegie Hall, I'll settle for that.
Yeah, I mean, today, you know, we want to know. Not everything is in the books, so you know, and it's not readily available.
Yes.
You have to do a lot of research.
Yes.
So you know, we want to teach our children
Yes.
what we haven't been exposed to,
Yes.
and not let that opportunity pass. So I think, you know, the concert on Monday night is absolutely exciting, just to read about who's going to be on the schedule.
The youngest person in the cast.
So let's talk about the play, and then I want to go back to some of the things that you've done on Broadway.
Okay.
Let's talk about
The youngest person in this
concert,
cast.
the Live the Dream.
Okay.
Yeah.
The youngest person in the cast is 10 years old. The oldest person in the cast is 75, and that would be me.
Okay.
And we have an entire stretch that we draw on. The younger person in the cast is 10 years old. He's presently appearing on Broadway in Kinky Boots. We have a group of 21 young men. The entire cast, by the way, is all African American male.
Oh,
And there are
okay.
21 of them under the age of 17 who are veterans of Broadway shows, some of them 2 and 3. So we have some of them who were in Kinky Boots, Matilda, Scottsboro Boys, The Lion King. They're all singing and dancing. They have a story to tell. They have a history on Broadway. Then we have the original cast of Dreamgirls, 5 Guys Named Mo,
right.
Smokey Joe's Cafe, Sophisticated Ladies, Yubi, Ain't Misbehavin', and they'll be performing in tribute to Jeffrey Holder, who created The Wiz, along with George Faison,
Right.
who won a Tony Ford. And
George
Mr.
Faison.
George Faison
I had him
will
on
be
the show
choreographing.
here a few months ago,
I'm sure.
during Christmas time.
Because
yeah.
we're also celebrating the 40th anniversary of The Wiz.
Beautiful.
We're also paying tribute to Louis Johnson, who choreographed Pearlie, choreographed for the Metropolitan Opera, danced with the New York City Ballet in a most glorious way many years ago. And he also choreographed the film of The Wiz with Michael Jackson and Diana Ross.
Right,
So we're
right.
honoring him. We're also honoring Luther Henderson, who was a major orchestrator on Broadway, and he also orchestrated for the Duke Ellington Orchestra, and we're honoring him. We're honoring Stephen C. Bird, who is the most prolific Broadway producer in the history of the world. He produced on Broadway Cat on a Hot Tin Roof. He produced on Broadway Streetcar Named Desire, Trip to Bountiful, and Romeo and Juliet with Condola Rashad playing Juliet. And he has an upcoming production of Orpheus, Black Orpheus, the film,
Right.
and the Eddie Murphy film Coming to America.
Coming to America.
So we're honoring him. In a very short space of time, he has created more than all of the other black producers combined in the history of Broadway.
Wow, beautiful, beautiful.
So in the teaching of this with the young people, we're having them in the presence of the elders who are going to pass on soon, in tribute to those who have passed on, in tribute and in the company of those who are still doing it, and we're passing that legacy on to them.
Right, beautiful. You know, there was Bert Williams,
yes,
the comedian.
We're doing a tribute to him.
Oh, really?
Ben Vereen will do a tribute to Bert Williams, and he will do a tribute to Bill Bojangles Robinson and to Sammy Davis in one segment in the show.
Yeah, Bert Williams is a Bahamian American.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah,
Bahamian
descendants. Woohoo!
That's wonderful to know.
Yeah, Bahamas.
That's wonderful to know.
Yeah.
Bert Williams created a great legacy for us. That legacy now lives in Savion Glover and the other tap dancers, Omar Edwards, Dule Hill, all of the young people, both male and female, who are in After Midnight. We're carrying on that tradition through the teachings of a tap dance teacher by the name of Henry Latang, whom we're also honoring at Carnegie Hall.
Right. Well, that's a fabulous lineup. I mean, how long did it take you to put that together? I mean, it was your idea. You conceived this concept of the show.
No, actually, the concept of the show is mine, but the concept of doing the concert was Norm Lewis's. Norm Lewis is currently performing on Broadway as the first Black Phantom on Broadway. The first Black Phantom was Bob Guillaume, who will also be president of Carnegie Hall, and we're honoring him, and we're giving him the Black Stars of the Great White Way Award as presented by Norm Lewis.
Wow. Well, I have my $35
Is that right?
Yeah, I'll be there.
Well, you know, $35 is the balcony seat.
I
way
know.
in the
Someone
back.
told me you'd be walking. I said, that's all right. I'll be there.
You do the stairs. But I went up to the dress circle, which is in front of the balconies, with Norm. We were taking a tour of the hall. And there was an orchestra rehearsing on the stage. And Norm looked down at the stage and he said, "My, it's absolutely, these are fantastic seats. I thought the cheap seats would be bad seats." But she said, "Shh, shh." The tour guide said, "Shh, shh." He said, "What's the matter?" She said, "They can hear you." Now, we were in $35 seats, but it's so acoustically perfect that the voice carried down to the orchestra.
Right.
I was amused otherwise, because I said to Norm, "You've sung here at least a dozen times, and you didn't see where the poor people were sitting, but now you know that they were in good stead, because the sound is magnificent."
Yes. I've sat way up there before.
Yeah, it's glorious, because you're right in the bell, you're right in the dome, and I once saw Jessie Norman sing there, and she hummed something, and I was sitting in the balcony, and she, I heard it.
Yeah,
it was beautiful.
Yeah, beautiful. Now, have you performed outside of New York City? And where have you performed? Where did you get started? Because I was looking at other Black entertainers. They went to Europe to get started. Did you have to go to Europe to get started, or did you start here in America?
Actually, when I left the third university that I flunked out of, I came to New York City, and I was drafted into the military, and I was assigned to European Special Services. Okay. So I went to Germany as a musical director, and I did sing in Europe for a number of years. Okay. And very soon after I came back, I attempted to study at Juilliard, but I wasn't good enough to stay there, and they also threw me out. One day, I went to see a Broadway show, and that was in 1968, and I was sitting once again up in the balcony, and they were in previews. I said, "I can do that." And 6 weeks later, I was in the cast of the biggest hit in the history of the world on Broadway. It was called Hair.
Hair, okay, yes.
And then I left Hair, and I went into a show called Salvation. I left Salvation, and when right before I was about to leave, a lady appeared in my dressing room, and she said, "I'm taking you to Broadway." The woman was Pearl Bailey. So very soon after I left Salvation, I walked out of Salvation back to Broadway to appear in Hello Dolly with Pearl Bailey and Cab Calloway. And then from there, I was called into Jesus Christ Superstar with Ben Vereen. And then from there, I was called to play El Gallo in the Fantastics. I'm the only African-American who's ever played the role. And then from there, Vinette Carroll approached me about doing vocal arrangements for her shows. And there was a show called Don't Bother Me, I Can't Cope by Mickey Grant running on Broadway at that time. And they called me in to doctor the vocal arrangements. From there, they asked me to come to do a show called Bubbling Brown Sugar, which was the first jukebox musical. It was not Jersey Boys. It was Bubbling Brown Sugar, starring Avon Long and Joe Addles and Josephine Premise and Vivian Reed, who is still singing and singing beautifully. And from there, they asked me to come and do a show called Blues in the Night, which is an anthology of blues music starring the great Ruth Brown. And from there, they asked me to come and do an anthology of the work of U.B. Blake. And I collaborated with him on the history on the anthology of his music. From there, they asked me to come and do an anthology of the work of Louis Jordan in a piece called Five Guys Named Mo. And then from there, they called me to London to develop another version of Five Guys Named Mo, which ran for 5 years. And then they called me back to the United States to do a piece called Smokey Joe's Cafe.
Beautiful. Wow. So you've really just moved from one to the next to the next.
Yes.
That's really great. So you've had a really wonderful career
Yes.
in doing the thing that you love.
Yes.
Beautiful.
And working with wonderful people. I also had a chance to be the musical director for the inaugural gala of Ann Richards when she became the first female governor of Texas. I worked for President Obama and President and Mrs. Johnson and President and Mrs. Carter and President and Mrs. Reagan. So it's been a wonderful career, but the reason that I know that, and I had the opportunity to study privately with Paul Robeson's teacher. So I know that as a child, the groundwork that was laid for me to be able to do those things was the most important thing that happened to me.
Definitely.
And that's part of the reason that we're doing this concert at Carnegie Hall, is to encourage the young people to, in fact, aspire to careers and aspire to any dream that they have. Any dream that they have. They don't have to go into
and at any age. Don't wait until you're, 25. You can start at 10 years old.
Oh, absolutely.
It just depends on the parents, I think, for when they're that young.
Absolutely.
But I think the parents need to be encouraged by what what you just shared with them, that you can start at a very young age.
Well, they can also be encouraged to help the children, but the person that will encourage them the most will be the child.
Sure, yeah.
The child will let you know what they want to do because it is in the heart of the child, and the child will lead. If we follow the child with proper vision and proper guidance, the child can achieve everything that it wants to do. So there was a photograph. It was called A Day in Harlem, and it was a group of the most famous jazz musicians in the world posing in front of a brownstone in Harlem. And he's just gone all over the world. And one day I got a phone call from Orpheus Casting, Maria Nelson and Ellen Long Marshall, and they said they're doing portraits of people in the theater. They want to photograph you. Will you go? You can be photographed as any character you want. And I said yes. They said, what character would you choose? I said Pope Victor I. They said, well, who's Pope Victor I? I said, well, he was the first black pope, 629 AD, and he is the one that incorporated Latin into the liturgy of the Catholic Church. He was also the Emperor of Rome, and he was born in Tunisia. He was North African, and he decided that as Emperor of Rome, that he would let the church have precedence over all church matters above, in fact, the Roman Emperor himself. So he was very important and pivotal in the Catholic Church. When I finished the portrait, I said to her, is there a photograph like The Day in Harlem of all the people on Broadway? She said, no, I don't think so. I said, why don't you do one? She said, I don't know how to do that. I said, well, let's try. So I sent out 10 emails and I said, spread the word. I had the Red Stairs, with the help of Veronica Claypool, closed off the Red Stairs. Meet me on the Red Stairs December 7th, 2011, and we're going to take your photograph and celebrate the fact that you've been on Broadway. Well, I opened my eyes, and there were 500 people standing on the Red Stairs.
Wow.
So we took the photograph, and at one point, to get them in a pose for the photograph, I had them all sing one word, and that one word was Broadway, this way. And Mrs. Denzel Washington was there, and Angela Bassett, and Sam Jackson, and all the great Tony Ward, Ben Harney, Adrian Lennox, they all showed up, So they were there, and after we finished, Norm Lewis walked down to me, and he said, did you hear that sound? He said, it was incredible. He said, I've always wanted to do a concert at Carnegie Hall celebrating black men on Broadway. He said, but I don't know how to do it. I said, well, let's just try. Let's do it.
Right.
So we're living that dream tonight at Carnegie Hall.
Right, beautiful. That was 2011.
That was 2011.
That's great. So see, everything is possible.
Yes.
You just have to be determined that it can be done.
Indeed.
Yeah.
We had no idea that we would also be celebrating his arrival on Broadway simultaneously as the first Black Phantom. It's a historic moment.
Oh, on the 23rd.
So, and that was his dream. So we're living that dream, and we're encouraging other people to do it.
My first show on Broadway was Pearly.
Was that right?
Yeah. My now husband bought the tickets, and we were front row. and of course, even to this day, I say, well, I wonder how much he paid for those tickets way back then.
He paid a pretty penny
Yeah.
in that economy.
Yeah, we were front row, and they were right there.
In that economy, he paid a pretty penny for it.
Yeah.
And when I made my debut in 1968, we had the top ticket price in the country, and it was $13.
$13. Wow.
And we were making $100 a week, and we got kind of angry because we had to take off our clothes, and we decided to go on strike to get more money for bearing our nakedness, and we triumphed. We got a $10 a week raise, which is $1.50 a performance.
Wow.
Now that show Pearlie was choreographed by Lewis Johnson, whom we're honoring at
Cap Calloway was
Carnegie
in
Hall.
it.
Cap Calloway was in Hello Dolly, but I'll tell you who else was in that show.
Okay.
Melba Moore won her Tony for that show, and at one point, Robert Guillaume played Pearlie, and we're honoring him at Carnegie Hall as well.
Now you've been nominated 25 times. That's quite a...
Not I personally, but in productions I've been involved with, it's probably closer to 50 times.
50?
Yes.
Okay, that's beautiful. That's really quite an accomplishment. You're really...
Well, it is because it's a team effort, you see. There are the singers, the
Yeah.
dancers, the choreographers, the set designers, the costume designers, the producers themselves, the musicians, the orchestrators, the arrangers, the dressers, the backstage people. It's a huge team effort. So when those Tonys are won, it's won by the production. It's not, unless it's best actor, best actress. It's a team effort that's being rewarded. We also have won, as a team, 3 Grammys. We won the Grammy for Bubbling Brown Sugar. We won the Grammy for Smokey Joe's Cafe, and we won it for something else. I forget what it was.
Do you still go to the Tonys? And
I was at the Tonys on Sunday night.
On Sunday night.
And I thought it was absolutely wonderful. And I saw the world change when in the middle of the whole thing, the whole audience was made to stand up, and out walks LL Cool J and T.I. And I said, the world has indeed changed.
That is so good. Wow. It has changed, yeah. But that's really, embracing all the forms of entertainment.
Yes.
Which is okay,
And Holler is coming in with Kenny Leon directing it, and it's going to be glorious. The work of Tupac.
Okay.
It's sort of coming full circle for him because he was a child actor, and at one point played the young boy in Raisin, so it's come full circle.
Yeah. For some reason, I keep saying Tupac isn't dead. He's still he's very much alive.
Spirit lives.
Because I just can't get it that he's no longer here.
Well, the spirit lives.
That's very true. Very true. He would have been another great black entertainer. Well,
he still is. You see, I think this is what the mystics speak about life after death. It has many forms that it can take. And I think the artistry, our art lives for us, and it speaks for us, and those visions come to life through other people. So it is another form of life.
Now, let's talk about the concert now for those persons who want to get tickets. It's not too late,
No, it's not too late. Even if this is shown next Monday afternoon, there's still time. But they should shine their shoes because it's going to be black tie. They should be very, very, very dressed up. No matter where they're sitting on that occasion, they should be very dressed up. It's going to be a glorious occasion.
Right. Yeah, I would say so. It's going to be a glorious occasion. It's definitely so.
There'll be over 100 performers on the stage.
And
we're looking forward to it.
That's going to be really beautiful. So they can call the box office.
CarnegieHall.org.
Or they can charge
Carnegie Charge.
They call 212-247-7800.
That's correct.
And if they wish, they can go on down to the box office at 57 and 7th Avenue.
That was correct.
That's really great. Now, what part is Felicia Rashad playing?
Felicia Rashad was, as I said, this is also celebrating the 40th anniversary of The Wiz, and Felicia Rashad was a Munchkin in the original Broadway cast of The Wiz.
Oh, Munchkin.
So when I approached Jeffrey Holder and asked him, who would you like to present the Black Stars of the Great White Way Award to you, without taking a breath, he said, Felicia Rashad. And then we called Harold Wheeler, and we said, who would you like to present the Black Stars of the Great White Way Award to you? And he said, Felicia Rashad. So I called her, and she said, I'll move mountains to be there. She's in great demand. Everybody wants the award from her.
Okay, beautiful. And Cecily Tyson going to be there?
Cecily Tyson will be presenting to Stephen Bird.
Wow.
As I said, he's done wondrous work, and he co-produced a Trip to Bountiful, for which she won the Tony for her wonderful work in that.
Right.
And they're taking it to tour, and I believe they're taking it to Europe.
Right.
And it's been done for television as well.
And Barry Gordy?
Barry Gordy will not be joining us, but the cast of Motown will.
Motown, okay.
And members of the cast of Motown will be joining us to do a selection from Motown. And some of them are veterans of some of my other shows, Five Guys Named Mo, Smokey Joe's Cafe, and all of that. So they'll be doing numbers from those shows as well.
Yeah, this is going to be glorious,
Yes.
glorious, yeah.
That's why it's called the Broadway Reunion.
Exactly, yeah. It's the Great White Way reunion.
The Great White Way, people think that it has a racial context, but it doesn't. The Great White Way, Broadway was called the Great White Way, because if you stand at the corner of Times Square and you look down 44th Street West at night, you'll see the white light bulbs and all the marquees.
Right,
and one
right,
day
right.
somebody said it's like the Milky Way, and it became the Great White Way.
Right.
But we use the contrast of colors, the black stars of the Great White Way, and I think it works beautifully.
Yeah, this is really beautiful. I mean, I tell you, it's worth working on it from 2011 till now. It's definitely going to be an awesome event, and I hope that my guests would, and my audience that's watching would want to be there. You don't want to miss it, because they're just passing through. This is the one time, right?
It's the one time.
There's not a second performance.
No, and there's another reason why we should hasten to come. It's because just in the last 3 weeks, we lost Maya Angelou. And
Yes.
I had privilege of having lunch at her house with her in Winston-Salem almost exactly a year ago. And then we lost Ruby Dee and little Jimmy. And so people are passing on. Most of our honorees are in their 80s. So it's time for us to say to them, we appreciate you and trust that we will carry on your legacy. Noble Sissel wrote the lyrics for many of U.B. Blake's songs. And his family will be in attendance, his son will be in attendance, and his daughter will be in attendance, and his grandchildren, to accept the Black Stars of the Great White Way Award in his name. And his daughter said to me, you know what my father always said? He didn't mind dying, but he didn't want to be forgotten, and we have not forgotten him.
Wow, that's beautiful. Yeah, that's beautiful. Yeah, that's really great. So now, what else do you have after this show? Live the dream.
Going to my house in Barbados and live the dream.
Are you originally from are you Barbados descendant?
No, not at all. People think I am. When I first came to New York, they would stop me on the street and they would say things to me, and they say, you're from the islands. I would say, no. They said, don't be ashamed, man. Dead people you're from.
Don't be ashamed, man.
Don't be ashamed. But I love Bathsheba, Barbados, if you ever been there.
Barbados is really beautiful. I've seen some beautiful pictures just here last week. We celebrated Caribbean Week.
Yes, that's right.
And I had the opportunity to tape the chef from Barbados, and the food was good. Yeah,
I'm looking forward
I taped
to
several of them. So
great. I'm looking forward to going back to the Bahamas as well.
Bahamas,
yes.
Yeah.
I love the islands. When you get a chance, perhaps there's a singer that you might want to interview who's coming from Barbados, actually for the Live the Dream concert. Her name is Alison Hines, and she lives in Barbados.
Okay.
And she would love to come and interview with you.
Oh, definitely. I love to have my sister come over and visit. Yes, I love to. I'll get that information from you.
Great.
Definitely love to. Yeah. As a matter of fact, next week on my show, it's going to be Ashton Hall.
Okay.
He is a fashion designer.
Okay.
So from Jamaica descendants.
Beautiful.
So and it's going to be a fashion show. So he's excited, and I'm excited to have him as my guest.
Wonderful.
And so it's all about empowering all of us.
Indeed.
Young designers out there who want to know how did he get started? And they're saying, oh, I need billions and billions of dollars. No, it's just it's all the person.
Jeffrey Holder is also a designer, and he will tell you he took bits of cloth that were left after his mother's sewing and put things together, and
true.
he ended up with the costumes for The Wiz.
Yes, yeah. So you can start at any age. So that's what it's all about, empowering all those who think that, well, how do I begin? When do I begin?
If you can conceive it, you can achieve it.
Exactly. Okay, Mr. Roberts, you mentioned Bert Williams.
You mentioned Bert Williams.
Yeah, actually, I mentioned Bert Williams as one Bahamian American who has contributed to Broadway, in the early 19s, say maybe 1920s, thereabout. How has his influence or his performance on Broadway, has it changed the emphasis on blacks, or did it have a negative connotation?
Well, what happened was things were coming full circle, because in incorporating the rhythms and the traditions of the Caribbean culture into the Broadway shows, we understood that we were in fact connected and not isolated from everyone else.
Okay.
In Bubbling Brown Sugars, there was Josephine Premise, who was Haitian, you see. And then we did a tribute in Bubbling Brown Sugar to Bert Williams. We then have been able to benefit from the magnificent work of Jeffrey Holder, who is from Trinidad.
Right.
And we Roscoe Lee Brown was a great Shakespearean actor, and he was from Jamaica. And of course, there's the great Calvin Lockhart.
Oh yeah, Calvin Lockhart, a Bahamian.
Yes.
Yeah, Bahamian born.
Okay. And of course, Sir Sidney Poitier.
Sidney Poitier, Bahamian born.
Absolutely. And so
Actually Bahamian American, but his parents are from Cat Island, Bahamas.
Yes. And he speaks on that. He still lectures, you know.
Yeah.
And he's written a couple of books, you know, about his experience there and how he brought that tradition with him.
Right.
So it has been an incredible influence on us. And then we have the work that Lena Horne did in Jamaica, which is absolutely wonderful. And that was an interracial company. And I think it was an interracial couple that was involved in that, in the storyline of that. So that influence has definitely been there, and it's been very, very powerful.
Okay.
Harry Belafonte thrived on Broadway and all over the world, brought the Caribbean rhythms and the folklore, once again, storytelling in songs to Broadway and on record, so that John Nespa, come here a moment, bring the belt, you're much too impudent. I mean, the idea of telling stories about family life on record, that whole storytelling tradition he brought to us, and we took it to Broadway, and all these wonderful shows like Once on This Island, you know, which is still running everywhere. Of course, in House of Flowers with Diane Carroll and Pearl Bailey, and of course Jeffrey Holder. So that influence has been constant.
Yeah. So, but I think it has kind of quietly moved out. How do you think can we bring back that Caribbean influence? Because I think that it was such a you know, lively entertainment to bring in that Caribbean calypso music. Was very important. Deo really, you know, made the Caribbean island for folks to take notice of the Caribbean islands with just that one song, Deo.
Absolutely.
I mean, can you sing that for me?
Deo, Deo, daylight come and me want go home. Day me say, 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 Deo. Daylight come and me want go home.
You do have that island sound coming through. You know that.
Well, it's a different kind of singing.
Yeah.
It's a whole different kind of singing.
Beautiful, beautiful.
It was also Derek Walcott, you know. Derek Walcott. He did the book for a piece called Cape Man, which the music was written by Paul Simon.
Okay.
And he wrote some wonderful pieces. He brought that tradition as well. So from all of the islands, the contributions have been made. People don't make such an issue out of the fact that they're from the Caribbean. They sort of melt into it, and then you find out when you do something special that half the people in the room are from the Caribbean, but they just never said anything.
True, very true. Well, you know, our friend, conductor and choreographer, Marlon Daniels,
yes,
he did a fabulous program last year, October, in the Bahamas, with the College of Bahamas, and it was a symposium. And the folks in Bahamas are still talking about that. Wonderful. They were really delighted.
He did it with orchestra?
Yeah, yes. Actually, a number of Caribbean composers that came into the Bahamas, and they did a whole week of different concerts, different places. And it was very interesting. It was aired on my show the early part of this year. Yeah, it was really nice. So folks are, you know, looking forward to his coming back and bringing something else there. Maybe not all the composers from the Caribbean islands, but I think that something, Caribbean, because he had quite a rich flavor and rich program that he brought to the company.
Many years ago, I helped produce a piece at Lincoln Center called Junkanoo Drums.
Junkanoo?
Yes.
Oh, we celebrate our festival in the Bahamas is called Junkanoo.
Yes.
It's the day after day after Christmas,
yes,
which is December 26th, and also January 1st.
Yes.
Yeah, Junkanoo. Yeah.
Yes, it was absolutely wonderful.
And I'm president of the Bahamian American Cultural Society, and we do several workshops during the year called Junkanoo for the children. That's exposing our culture to the kids here in the United States.
Yeah, fantastic, fantastic.
So
the
now,
Caribbean influence, I want to mention one more thing
Sure.
that Marlon does. There was a composer who was called the Chevalier de Saint-Georges.
yes, yes.
And he's from Guadeloupe.
That was performed in the Bahamas.
Yes.
Yeah.
And when they heard his music in Europe, they would say to people, whose music is that? And they would say, well, it sounds like Mozart, but only better.
Oh, beautiful.
He was
Yeah.
magnificent. And he was Marie Antoinette's music teacher. And he was a master fencer and a horseman and a swimmer and a duelist.
Wow.
And the character of D'Artagnan in the Three Musketeers, which was written by a man of color, Alexandre Dumas, is fashioned after Chevalier de Saint-Georges.
Great. Now, you're also honoring Jeffrey Holder.
Yes.
Is he retired, or is he still working, doing costumes, or?
Jeffrey is, as many dancers in their older age, the knees give way first, so he's not walking as well as he used to.
Okay.
But he's painting and sculpturing
Oh, okay. Good.
and
So-
lecturing prolifically
Wow.
from his room.
Okay.
I mean, we've actually had carloads of paintings to carry from him. He's still painting, and it's still being put away in storage. Had an exhibit at the Church Center, International Church Center, next to Riverside Church, just a couple of months ago.
Okay.
I believe his exhibit is playing at the California African American Museum in Los Angeles as we speak.
Okay.
And he called me the other day, he says, Chapman, I want you to come and see me. And I said, when? Now. I said, okay, I've got to get over there. And he had painted something that he wanted to give me.
Okay.
Huge, huge, like this,
Wow.
sitting, yeah, this is for you.
Okay.
He's still doing it, and never stops.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
He's the last of the Renaissance men.
Yeah.
Because he was a painter, a sculptor, a singer, a dancer, an actor, a composer, a costume designer, a fashion designer, a writer. And he's also a visionary. He's a film actor. He was a stage actor, choreographer, designed costumes for the Dance Theater of Harlem, the Alvin Ailey Company. His ballets are in the repertoire of both of those companies. There'll never be anybody else like him.
Okay.
He told me a wonderful story. It's about children. He said, you know, the most important day of my life was when I discovered that it was not I who was stupid. It was my teacher.
Right,
So the children will lead. The children will lead.
Right, true, very true, very true. And we must follow.
Yes, he said I took off. Because he never had a dance lesson.
He's never,
Never had a dance lesson. He created it himself, and he was principal dancer at the Metropolitan Opera in 1955.
Wow, wow. Well, you know, they look at the body. And if the body's there, they will shape it for you.
They can, yes, they will know. That's
yeah,
right. They will look at
yeah.
your feet and your hands and your back and decide, yes, you can actually do that.
Yeah, definitely. Well, that's, what age that was? He was an adult then, or?
When?
How old was he at that time?
When he discovered that his teacher was stupid?
No, that he can dance, that he can dance.
Oh, no. His brother had a dance company, and they started to dance together in his company.
I
And
see.
then somebody saw Jeffrey in a company where they went someplace and got stranded because a producer pulled out, so they had to dance to make a living, to survive, and to try to get back home. And the rest is history.
Yeah,
It became a matter, once again, of survival.
Right, right. You know, another person is Sidney Poitier,
Yes.
another Bahamian.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's interesting how he got started.
Yes.
Just a mentor helped him.
Yes.
You know, it was very interesting. I saw him last year, I think it was, when he introduced his first novel. at the Y.
92nd Street Y?
Right.
I was there that night.
You were there?
That was a wonderful night.
Yeah, that was really very. Yes, I was there.
Great stories. Yes.
Yeah, it was really very interesting. Very interesting, and to hear how he got started and to look that well today. Yes, you can make a living doing acting, singing, etc.
Mm-hmm. And he didn't want to leave the stage.
No, the people didn't want him to leave the stage. They wanted to hear more. They wanted to hear more.
And you think, well, he's retiring and he's enjoying what his life was. He's ready to go. He's loving it.
Yeah, it's quite an evening. Are you writing anything about yourself?
No, and people keep mentioning that. I can sit and tell stories, and when I have a little rum, they ask me to shut up, and I think it's quite enough.
Therefore, you need to start recording everything you're saying instead of writing it down. It'd be easier for someone to transcribe it.
Oh, that's it. Yeah, that's an idea.
Yeah.
I'd love to sit around and have conversations with Jeffrey, and with Lewis, and with Harold Wheeler, and with Stephen C. Bird, and with Miss Cicely Tyson, and with Felicia Rashad. I would love for us to sit and have conversations, and have that a record for the young people to listen to, because they're all storytellers.
Definitely. Would you like to come back?
To tell.
Bring them with you?
I don't know if they'll come with me, but they'll come for you.
Well,
I don't mind asking.
Yeah, definitely. We'd love to. We'd love to.
You need to talk to Stephen C. Bird, though. Really need to talk to him. And his producing partner, Aaliyah Jones, who is the only African-American woman producing on Broadway.
Ooh. Is she still on, or she's retired?
No, she's a young lady.
Just a young lady.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, definitely. I'd love to.
Wonderful. We'll see to it that you meet them.
Because I'm enriched and empowered by the stories. George Holder, George Faison.
George Faison.
Yeah,
yes.
and Jeffrey Holder. I mean, I've seen him in The Wiz. I've seen him, his designs and what have you, and the things that he's doing. It's very encouraging. Very encouraging. It's so empowering for others to hear, how he made it.
Yes.
And what did it take?
What we're fascinated about in our rehearsals for Carnegie Hall is the young people who are 10, 11, 12, and 13 years old. And there are people who are older men now, some of them on canes, and they're telling the younger people, I was the first munchkin in the movie of The Wiz with Michael Jackson and Diana Ross. And he's on a cane, and little kids are like this. They're fascinated.
Yeah,
Look
definitely.
at this. So I've seen them grow up, and become older people.
Right.
And now we're doing it with them, and we have the older men sitting there and telling them the stories about what their career was like, and advising them as how to survive the rigors of entertainment and show business. Because over half of those young men are unemployed. And so they're out of the spotlight, and there are adjustments that you have to make when that is not happening.
Right.
So we're teaching them that you have to keep on going, and that although you've had this remarkable experience, you have the opportunity to create other experiences and continue to educate yourself and continue to grow, because the opportunity will come again. If it can come for Tupac in death, it can certainly come for them in life.
Exactly. Sure, definitely. And it's always, you're learning something every day. So you shouldn't just think that because you're retired, you should just sit back and watch TV.
Exactly. And we're encouraging them to look at alternative ways of sharing with society our many gifts. I maintain that people in show business, if they had they not been in show business, they would have been extraordinary in some other way. So some of them, we tell them, you might still want to be a costume designer, or a producer, or a director, or a choreographer, or an investor in plays after you finish university and become a businessman, and then you want to turn and invest in business. There are all kinds of ways to take this theatrical experience and develop it into other things.
Definitely. Well, it's been a pleasure.
Mine.
And do let us, make contact with all those names that we just talked about.
Absolutely.
Love to have them.
Absolutely.
The space is here, and I just need to schedule it.
Absolutely.
And I'll make time.
We'll do that. There's an African-American casting company, 2 women. One is from Costa Rica. They are the only African-American casting company in New York City, and they're both women, and they would love to come and talk to you too. because everybody who's worked on Broadway has come to their office in one way or the other, either for stage, television, or film. And they have some magnificent stories to tell.
Right,
And
exactly. Yeah, this has been really a delight. And I'm looking forward to your gospel concert.
Yes, I'll look forward to that.
And I hope that it happens, next year. Now, this show will be seen not only here in Manhattan, on Time Warner, Channel 34, Fios 33, RCN 82. It's also seen on the web. Yeah, it's www.mnn.org. And from Manhattan, it goes into Brooklyn, Bronx, and Queens. So I'm happy to spread the word, because we all need to be empowered.
And thank you for inviting me. I'm very glad
it's
to be
been
here.
a pleasure. I mean, the first time I saw you was The People Can Fly.
Oh,
I've seen you in person. I've seen you on film, and but not in person. And I'm really delighted that you spend time with me. And next time when you're doing anything, give me a call.
I'll look forward.
You have my number.
Indeed.
And I have yours, and
Indeed.
I want to be in touch.
I'm looking
And
forward.
I'm looking forward to Live the Dream.
Yes.
I definitely want to be there, and
Carnegie
I
Hall,
hope
June
that
23rd.
my audience would also want to be there. I think you don't want to miss it. It's like I say, it's one performance, June 23rd at 8 o'clock, and at Carnegie Hall. So please, be counted, be a part of the show. Okay, my pleasure.
My pleasure.
Dr. Chapman Roberts.
Indeed.
It has been absolutely a delight.
Great.
And
I'll see you there.
So glad you spent this time with me.
Thank you.
Okay, and I wish you the very, very best.
Thank you, and to you as well.
And all your projects, because you're really great. You're really great.
Thank you.
And I think we should all come out and support your projects. Okay.
Thank you.
Great. You're welcome. This is Beryl Edgecombe from Den Bahamians.